Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. Truly a pleasure having you on Brand Equity.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So, Netflix has been making a lot of noise, not only in India, but globally. So, many congratulations on the decision to go global with this massive expansion. But let me start by asking you, what was the trigger?
Well, we actually got to the stage where we had enough original programming that we could control all over the world, so we could open up using the internet to reach a bunch of people we couldn't before.
So you decided to get into close to 130 countries.
That's correct.
130 countries, India being one of them. How did you decide on these 130 countries?
Well, for the last 5 years, we've been expanding gradually.
Sure.
We've been in about 60 countries, and over that time, we've gained more confidence that when we enter a market, we know a lot more after one day of being there than we do through months and months of research.
Sure.
So over time, we've made a lot of trial, a lot of errors. We've made some good decisions, some bad decisions in opening up countries. By the time we got to January, we felt that the internet speeds had gotten good enough generally, our catalog had gotten big enough that we could begin to offer the service all over the world at one point in time and give people the opportunity to see Netflix shows at the same time, whether they're in Mumbai or in New York City or in Argentina or in Lagos.
Tell me, to expand and really be present in 130 countries, what's the kind of investment Netflix is making to, become a sizable, significant player in all these markets?
Right. Well, we have about $5 billion of investment every year in content.
Sure.
And a lot of that content, more and more of that content, is being made by us or it's being licensed globally, which goes against all the business models in Hollywood history where everything's carved up regionally. So we're at the sort of forward edge of getting global licenses for shows so we can give people what they want, which is the ability to watch what they've heard about at the same time as everybody else in the world.
Okay. So obviously, a House of Cards kind of scenario will never occur again.
Hopefully not, yeah. House of Cards was our first show, so we couldn't afford rights to it all over the world.
Sure, sure. So let me come to India and what everybody's talking about, Netflix in India. So it's interesting that you've come to this large, very, very complex market, however, a sizable market. But, a lot of people who have seen your catalog and are used to your shows, who are global consumers of content, seem to suggest that the Indian catalog is a very watered-down version, possibly only about 7 to 10% of the entire Netflix catalog, which includes your shows and your movies. Would you be in agreement with that? And is that strategic, or is that because you're just starting out, testing the market and see how it goes?
Okay, so first of all, that was kind of misstated.
Okay.
It's 7% apparently, and I've heard this figure again and again, of the U.S. catalog.
Yeah, of the U.S.
Okay,
catalog.
the U.S. catalog is for a market where we have 45 million subscribers, hence we have a lot of money to spend there, right?
Yeah.
When we started in the U.S., we had a much smaller catalog, just like when we started in Brazil, in the U.K., we started in Italy and Spain just a few months ago, same thing, very small catalog. And part of the reason for that is because what we do when we come into a market is we start looking at what people are actually enjoying, and then we shape the catalog according to that. So it makes very little sense for us to try and license rights to all kinds of things and then find out people aren't going to like them.
Sure. So this is strategic, I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Right.
Right.
But I want to be very clear here. It's not like India is getting a watered-down version. What
Okay.
India is getting is a catalog mainly of Netflix original series, which is what I think a lot of people are interested in watching. So the same time that season 2 of Daredevil comes out in the United States, it'll come out the exact same moment here in India.
Right.
So people will be able to get it in the exact same moment, all episodes at once. That's never been true before in the history of any television network. So what we're doing is we're giving people what they want, which is access to the content they've heard about in a really clean, good form at a reasonable price, we think. And they'll be able to enjoy it. And we're gradually going to build up the catalog here to include more and more of our originals, more licensed content from other countries, and more Indian content over time.
Let me come to your pricing.
Yeah.
So, you have a 500 rupee version, you have a 600 rupee version, or 700,
Yeah.
and 800 rupee
Right.
version, right? Depending on what pack you're selecting. Plus, I would also have to include, if I'm looking at a Netflix investment, the cost of streaming, my internet costs, which in India, as you know, is a lot more dearer to one than, let's say, in the West, right? Our internet costs are something that we look at pretty closely. Given that, if one does the math, it's not a cheap proposition. So having said that, are you then looking to be a very niche player in the Indian market, given the fact that, not everybody would do a 500, 700, 800 plus, internet streaming costs, which makes it sizable per month? Are you looking at skimming the surface of India?
Well, the way we're thinking about it right now is that we are likely early adopters, just as they are in any market. In every market we've gone to, it's been pretty much the same thing. Because we've been in 60 countries now over the last 5 years, and we've seen a lot of different broadband conditions. So people have a decent Netflix experience in broadband markets, which are not great and also expensive, like Brazil, like Argentina. And, they're having a good Netflix experience, and they feel like it's decent value for the money. So what we do is we spend a lot of energy on making our streaming better, on making our encoding, which is how you bring data down and encrypt it to a very, very, compact level so that it uses as little bandwidth as possible. We spend a lot of time and energy doing that. And in general, we try and give people a really, really great experience. When you talk about the cost of Netflix here, it may seem like a lot relative to India. It's the same price all over the world. And really the way I think about it, like in the United States, 1 month of Netflix is equal to 1 entry into a theater for me. And if it's a 3D movie, it's less than 1 entry into a theater. So if I take my family of 4 to the movies, that's like 8 months of Netflix, right? Okay. Here in India, it's like 2 theater tickets in an urban center. So it's still a pretty good deal because you get all this incredible range of content from all over the world.
Right. So, I'm glad you talked about pricing because you have global pricing, right? So it's the same price globally. Doesn't matter which market.
Pretty much.
You're right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's actually a good strategy? And I ask you this question for 2 reasons. A, being that, let's say in a market like India, at the moment, because you're testing the market and you're trying to figure out what we enjoy, you've only bought your limited version of Netflix. And what I mean by limited version, I mean, 7% or whatever percent of your US catalog, because you're still testing the market, which is fair.
We can't get rights to all of the things that we have in the US. Again, it's not that we're trying to deny Indians things that they could otherwise have. It's that global rights are by territory, and only certain things are available to us in India above and beyond what we have global rights to.
Sure.
So I keep making that point because it's not like we're trying to prejudice anyone.
Absolutely not. Right. No, okay. Point well noted. Don't get me wrong. My question is that given that, the limitations of bringing your global content here, for whatever reasons, as you just stated, would the global pricing be justified here? Would it have made better sense for you to have, let's say, come down with a slightly, lower pricing? Also, given the fact, which is my part B, is that we're a very, very price-sensitive market. However rich one might be in India, I think, and that's I don't know if it's a global phenomenon, but, paying for content is something that we haven't learned to do.
You could argue that over time it may make sense to do something different. We're starting out, that may be the case. But for now, we're sticking to our basic approach because it's worked well for us. In general, everywhere. But we're an internet company, we're a learning machine. Everywhere we go, we try and adapt, we try and improve, we try and get better. So it's hard for me to say where we're going to be in a year's time, and hard for me to say where we're going to go with a number of different things. Our goal, though, is to give people great value for the money, give them a ton of stuff to watch, not only for, say, you, but for your mom, for your kids, for anyone in the household. The thing about Netflix is that it's highly personalized according to the viewer's taste. Sure. So if you have, say, 3 different people in the house, each with their Netflix profiles, they can have a completely different Netflix. The things that they're shown on it are entirely different. Sure. So we have a whole kids section. There's never any advertising on Netflix, so it's a great place for kids to be able to watch a ton of exclusive kids programming that's nowhere else in India. Ditto for our adult program. We have a lot of stuff for your mom too.
Sure.
It may take her a little while to figure it out, but you know what? We try and make it really easy to use and good so that everybody has something to enjoy.
You know, I want to talk about Netflix's technology, which is really adaptive in terms of, you know, understanding what your bandwidth is and then accordingly, you know, adjusting. Yeah, that's the word. I just want to talk to you about how this will work in India. While this works perfectly well and seamlessly in slightly more sophisticated markets, in a country like India, when you have adaptive technology, there are two things that I want to bring to your notice and want your response to. One is that the people who are watching Netflix and who will pay and will be loyal users of Netflix in India will be people of a certain socio-economic group, right? And also people who are global consumers already. Because of our inherent you know, infrastructure issues such as fluctuating internet levels, this adaptive technology sometimes sucks the whole joy in terms of your viewing experience, and hence, in turn, makes the Netflix user experience not so great. Are you looking to somehow become more adaptive in the way you look at tech, so that, you know, we have a better user experience in the future?
Well, I don't know whether people are having a bad user experience here. I think that right now we're streaming about 12 billion hours a month to 60 countries, including some very, very poor countries with very bad bandwidth. And in general, we offer a fantastic experience. What adaptive streaming does is it actually adjusts in the millisecond to the actual bandwidth conditions of whether you're on your mobile phone, your tablet, on a smart TV. And in general, it's very, very fast and very good at preventing buffering, at preventing glitching, at preventing any of the things that make watching video difficult. So we're the leaders of that technology globally. And, you know, if we've got work to do in India, which I'm sure we do, we'll be doing it.
So, you know, at the moment, after your global expansion, everybody, I'm assuming, is on your free trial, right? Which will expire in a bit.
Well, the first people who signed up from that day is February 6th.
So it's only post the 6th of Feb that you will actually know the number of users you've added to the 75 million current global user base. But what's your sense in terms of...
Hopeful?
No,
optimistic?
No, in terms of, you know, from 75 million, let's say
let's say March 31st, because that's when we've given guidance to Wall Street, because we're a publicly listed company, and we said that we believe we'll add 6 million additions during Q1 of 2016. So that would take us to over 80 million members between the United States and all of the countries that we're operating in globally. So that means quite a modest assumption of growth in terms of outside our current international markets, meaning the ones we've been in for a while, and adding to those the new ones. So we're very patient. What we try and do when we think about expansion is look, learn, listen, get better.
So I'm a big fan of all your original content.
Thank you.
Even before you launched in the country. But having said that, what is your opinion of your competitors, the other OTT players that have been working in India, who are local players and are you know, most definitely looking at you as competition? And I don't know how you're looking at them, but what is your sense of the landscape here, and how do you think that will impact you as a company who's trying to get a foothold, and how do you think it will impact these players?
We've said from the start that any linear television network that wants to be successful in the future needs to do internet TV and do it well. So we think it's great. I mean, the more competition, the better, because that means consumers have way more choice over how and when they watch their favorite programs. The other thing is you know, I asked you in the conference room how many people have used these services in India, and it doesn't seem like very many people are using them yet. And I don't know why that is, but, you know, clearly everybody's got work to do to make this value proposition clear to consumers and to help them understand why it's a great thing to do to pay some money to watch TV on the internet instead of through a local broadcasting.
So do you see a lot of consolidation happening in a bit, given that, you know, there are more and more players that are coming on, but they finally, you know, there is only so many finite hours in a day where I actually have time to watch television.
If you go home and you look on your cable box or whatever, how many channels are there?
There are over 300.
Right. Well, there could be over 300 OTT services too, right? Because the thing is about television is every network ostensibly has its own content, and they don't share that content with other networks. So in India, you've got bigger networks like Star and Z and us. Now, we have stuff that they don't have. They have stuff that we don't have. And none of us will all have the same stuff. So over time, what we see happening is that people will subscribe to different apps. And the apps that will win, the apps that will have the most customers, are the ones that do the best job of giving programming that people want and that do a great job of delivering streaming.
Yeah, sure. So, for instance, Hotstar, which is Star's, you know, OTT service, is clear in their positioning. They're going local and they're going mass, like really mass, right? So, totally to they're going to cater to the entire pyramid, all the way up to below. You, on the other hand, must obviously have a different positioning.
Yeah.
And if you could define that positioning for me, that would be very helpful.
Well, Star has had a business in India for many, many years,
Sure.
and they know the market incredibly well. They have a ton of content
Sure.
that they've already made for the Indian market. So they have this vast catalog of stuff they already own that they can just put online.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't have that, right? We have not been making productions in India. We haven't had linear channels in India. So whatever we do in India is either something that we license from someone else or something we make ourselves going forward. So it's a very different situation. Right now, we're concentrating on global storytelling for the Indian market, and eventually we want to be able to take Indian stories and bring them to the rest of the world, because India is a great market for creative storytelling in series and movies, and we carry a ton of Bollywood content in other parts of the world.
But would your positioning be niche, premium, or mass?
Our positioning is that we're focused right now on people who speak English, who probably have an iPhone, probably have an international credit card or an iTunes account, pretty much live in a big city. That would be the same approach we've taken in every single country that we've entered from the start, because those are the early adopters of services like Netflix. Over time, we broaden, we deepen, we get bigger. But it's a long journey, and it's a journey that we're just starting out on now.
So, you know, I was speaking to some of your competitors before I met with you. And so there was a good line you say, and I was getting their perspective on Netflix's entry into India.
Yeah.
So the broad consensus was that Netflix's entry into India is more opportunistic than strategic, because they haven't studied the market and, you know, understood what's going to click and entered with a big bang. They're trying, testing, skimming the surface, and hence more opportunistic than strategic. Would you be in agreement with that statement?
No, because I don't really even know how to respond to that statement, because what we do in every market is we come in, like I said at the very beginning of our conversation, we know so much more after one day of watching what people are watching than we do out of months and months of research. And we did do months and months of research here.
Sure.
The point is that we're trying to build based on viewing behavior, and we shape the service according to what people are actually watching, not what people are trying to sell us in the market, not what people are telling us other people want. We actually watch what people watch and know what it is they're watching. And that helps us make good choices about how to program the service.
Okay.
So we're basically looking at consumer behavior in its purest form.
Also tell me, you haven't really opened an India office, right? You'd be working out of Singapore.
Correct.
Right? Is there a particular reason for not having an India office?
Yeah, we're an internet company. We don't have very many offices at all. We have a marketing and PR office in Singapore that we just opened, and that'll serve the region. And as we grow our business in the region, as we grow production in the region, we'll likely open more offices, but I don't know when.
And when you going forward, when you're also beginning to develop local content, what would be the ratio of, let's say, your global content, which is for universe viewing, versus, let's say, localized content? What would be that ratio?
Every content that we're going to make, if you're talking about original programs, is going to be global. It doesn't matter if it's in Hindi. It doesn't matter if it's in Spanish. I mean, our biggest global show, Narcos, is 70% in Spanish. Okay, and people said, oh, Americans are never going to watch a TV show in Spanish, and millions of people all over the world have watched a TV show that's 70% in Spanish because it's a great TV show.
Sure.
So if we get a Hindi version of that, it'll be awesome. Or a Gujarati version of that, or a Tamil version of that. It really boils down to the storytelling. If a story is great, if people relate to it, if it's like House of Cards, which has been a hit for us all over the world because power, corruption, and lies is true anywhere you are, then, people will watch it. A show like Daredevil, a show like Jessica Jones. They're shows that have universal truths in them that people really enjoy. So we're now making original programming in Mexico, in Brazil, in Italy, in France, in Korea, in Japan. So we'll do so in India too, and we hope to be able to tell great Indian stories to people all over the world.
Tell me, from your point of view, what are your key challenges?
As a company?
Yeah.
Really being smart and thoughtful about how we prioritize, both in terms of content and in terms of resources, investing in language and local assets, in all the different things we have to weigh as we move forward. I mean, India is a terrific market for us, but we have so much to learn about India because it's tremendously complex, and the internet and the change in the way entertainment is being served up to people changes viewing habits, it changes patterns of behavior, it changes all kinds of things. So it's not say, oh, well, this worked 10 years ago, so we'll just do that. That's just not the way it works anymore. So we're actually a living, breathing organism on the internet that keeps fixing, getting better, adding content all the time. If you look at Netflix now compared to the day we started, there's probably at least a third more content there. And we'll continuously add more content and shape the service so that it meets the needs of the Indian consumer. So you'll see over the course of this year, we have 75 new and returning series, movies, and documentaries, all of which will be available in India at the exact same moment they're available everywhere else in the world, and we'll be marketing around those. So when season 2 of Daredevil is coming up, you'll hear about that. We have the new version of Full House, which I understand a lot of people grew up with here, called Fuller House, which premieres this month, and it'll be available in India at the exact same moment it's available. So that's a great example. Okay, so Full House was on Indian television in reruns for I don't know how many years, right?
Absolutely.
Forever, right? So people will be able to enjoy the new version of it with the same cast, the same characters, the exact same moment here they will in New York City.
Sure.
And so that's something new.
Yeah, that's true.
That's totally different.
That's true.
Yeah.
Dude, despite all the questions that I've asked you with a cynical bent of mind, I must say, I think we welcome Netflix in India, and hopefully, it will be an experience that we have not witnessed before. So all the very best. But however, before I leave you,
stop being cynical,
I want to ask you one very controversial question, and I hope you're ready for it. And that is, what do you think Frank Underwood will do next?
Well, he's running in a campaign right now, and he's up against the likes of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, so I'm sure he'll think of some horrible, terrible things to do. Season 4 is coming soon. I don't know who has it here, but we're hoping also to have it on Netflix. I can't be sure about that, but we're going to try very hard to do that. And I've seen some of Season 4, and it's diabolical. I mean, it gets darker and darker, if you can imagine.
Can't wait for it. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and all the very best for your Netflix innings in India.
Thank you very much.